The main point of music is expressing yourself and making sure people understand you. That's it. That's music and making people feel. How do you make people feel? You communicate and they understand. Okay, if you go blindly into it, yes, makakachamba ka, shotgun method or, banking on emotion. But I still believe in a little bit of method. And that's one of the ways you can get there and make sure you're understood.
Welcome to Theoretically Speaking, hosted by Victoria Herrera and Brent Javier. From the Philippines to the world, this is an interview series with creative entrepreneurs, tastemakers, and change agents. We dissect the journey they took from dream to reality, exchanging stories from the past, motivations in the present, to ideas for the future. What's up, everyone, and thanks again for listening to Theoretically Speaking. And if this is your first time, then we are glad to have you here. So invite your friends, invite your family. Our guest today, we really got to connect a few years ago through our mutual interest, starting with basketball, then fashion and music, and we quickly became homies. He is a renowned personality in the Philippine music scene. As a musician, he is best known as the lead guitarist for the bands Chico Sai as well as Sandwich. He is the producer of Perea Street, a social media video series on street style, as well as other media work with Taken by Cars, Commonwealth, and San Miguel Beer. These days, alongside his music and production work, he has taken on the role as creative director and managing partner of D&D Custom Guitars, a Manila-based guitar company dedicated to quality instruments. He probably has the pulse on the culture more than anyone I know. Friends, we present to you artist, producer, and OG sneakerhead, Mong Alcaraz. I'm actually going to talk about how he was described to me by our past guest, Raoul Reinoso. And he said that Mong is like a GRO, a guest relationships officer. And this is a real story, and it's very true. And the reason why is because he can get along with everyone.
Welcome to the show, Mong. It's good to
Thank
see you here.
Hello. Hi, guys.
Woo. How
Thank
are you? How's quarantine life right now?
Still pretty much quarantined. I've done a bunch of interviews already during the course of this quarantine, and it's still my number one discovery is when Shakey's released their Mojo's recipe. Oh my gosh. That's the real deal. You know how there's clickbait articles about do the chicken joy at home, but this one just really nails it. It's really it. Like, give me a potato, I'll just slice it up. And it's so simple. It's just the chicken breading.
This is what I'm talking
that's
about,
it.
everyone.
That's it.
The pulse of culture. This guy knows from Mojo's to
Shakey's
music
Mojos.
to sneakers. Like, it's crazy.
But yeah, that's one major lesson in quarantine. How about you guys?
V?
Well, we learned how to make a podcast, Mong.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, me too.
Yes, you two, you're saying that Mel has a podcast now? Tell us a little bit about it.
All right. So the wifey does a podcast with Ramon De Vera and Quark Canaris, and it's called Enslate. But it's generally pop culture and movies. We've done some interesting stuff. Like we interviewed Maria Ressa when she did 1,000 Cuts. Yeah, that's been keeping me busy. We've been doing it for a while. We're on episode 32. Yeah, 32.
Oh.
And so we were spoiled in the beginning, like pre-pandemic. We had access to the Globe Studios thing at BGC. So I just get files and then edit them down. So obviously we're in a pandemic and everyone's quarantined. So I had to get creative. I had them set up. We'll have them on Zoom, but we'll have an iPhone ready on standby with them. So they're recording the audio at the same time as Zoom. The Zoom will serve as a guide for everyone else. And then the phones, then they send me the audio from the phones. I have them clap at the beginning and yeah, so I can get it synced like really quickly and visually on the computer. So the first two episodes were really funny because I ran into problems like, oh my God, Quark sounds like he's in a cave. We just exposed how big his house really is. But, okay, the easiest remedy was to place the iPhone that was, or the phone that was recording on a pillow just to reduce, the cavernous qualities of the audio. or talking to their cabinets. I'm thinking a lot of people now are like really well versed with these things, and especially in the Philippines. Like I don't know if you guys seen all of the a bunch of the quarantine or lockdown music performances.
Mm.
I think the Philippines has the most. I get tagged. So some people will cover our songs and will get tagged. And then I saw a bunch of other bands like if you guys remember Taking Back Sunday, the guitar player did a reaction video to all these lockdown covers and 4 out of 5 were Filipino. So I'm guessing there's a lot of people doing it. People are like getting on editing skills, audio skills, buying a
Mo-
lot of hard
Oh,
drives,
Mojo
learning
skills.
mojo skills, learning that a video takes a lot of memory. So, which I also experienced. So it's a bizarro matrix world right now, if you know what I'm saying.
Totally. We were just saying that before you joined the Zoom call, right? We're like, I
Yeah.
don't know what tomorrow will bring. You don't want to be poetic and be like, oh, we don't know what tomorrow will bring. It's like, nah, dog, we really don't know. Did you think, right, that you would be learning the secrets of how to make mojos,
No, I never thought Shakos would give that secret up.
right?
Yeah,
It's
but
just like,
they gave it up real quick, huh?
so how many times have
I
you visited that recipe and made mojos?
think we've had it 4 times in this household. I cooked twice. Deep fry that ish.
and it's just dope how like everyone is becoming different versions of themselves that they never thought that they would be. It's just like suddenly you have people becoming chefs and then it's like, yo, I thought you were doing something else. And then you see people growing plants, you see people creating
It's also
podcasts. Yeah, it's right.
it's also funny looking at all the trends. Like, oh, this week it's ube pandesal. Next week it's ube pandesal with cheese. People discovering you can drown snake plants because they don't need that much water.
I learned that.
what,
Guilty.
what is
Guilty.
that?
Yeah.
It's one of the most low maintenance plants you can get this quarantine season.
It's interesting. You see all these hidden talents, skills start like coming out with people, right? But it makes you
Mhm.
wonder that, man, if lockdown didn't happen, would we have just been hiding our genius in making plants and everything, or making food or creating, right? So it's interesting how a world pandemic has triggered a whole new generation of creativity, and then also the current creators are just finding different sides to themselves just to stay sane.
Well, my take on that is people are struggling with finding or rediscovering and recognizing relevancy right now. If we go back to Brent's marvelous and wonderful intro, well, what did we we met back on basketball? That's not relevant right now on our level. I mean, there's the NBA bubble,
Yeah.
but I can't play. I mean, I do free throws every morning, but 5-on-5 is not a thing right now. Everything is just shifting and shifting and shifting. And I think well, as creators, we should be responsible in the sense that we're watching how all of these things are developing, what seems to be safe, what seems to be insensitive, what seems to be plain uncool. I don't know. But you guys get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, of course.
You can't just nod, Vicky. It's an audio thing. You can't
Oh,
just nod. You have to say yes, yes, I understand you.
yes, yes, Mong, we understand you.
I kid.
um, no, Mong's like that though. He's like, you can't just do that, Vicky. I was like, oh, okay, wait, hold on. When you say, I really liked when you said it's kind of like people are grasping for things that are relevant, because it is quite true in the sense that the things that were important even 6 months ago, suddenly it's like the value systems have changed and radically shifted overnight. So it's kind of like us trying to find things that can just help us cope with what's
Mm-hmm.
just cope with ourselves and our feelings with everything going around the world. So sometimes all you need, like if you feel really, really anxious, sometimes making those mojos just calms you down, right?
Yeah.
Or planting or like making that ube pan de sal. Sometimes that is the remedy just to like
Exactly.
chill, you know? what we're going to do, just the world we're in right now, but we're going to take it back a little bit and to a world before COVID and how it was really for you, growing up and your discovery for music and how you got into that. Can you tell us that story?
So music, nobody in my family was into music. Both my parents were accountants. We had a piano at my father's side grandmother's house. That's it. That's the closest thing I was to music. And then my parents got into Couples for Christ. And that's when a guitar somehow found its way in our house. Never learned how to play it. I learned piano first. My sister took piano lessons. It was very interesting to me. So I'd watch my sister get her lessons, practice in secret at night. And then when I hit 13 or 14, I discovered Pantera, Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine in particular. And I was learning from piano lessons from 2 years back. I was trying to learn all the riffs on piano. And then I was like trying to figure out, okay, how will I ever join a band? I can't bring a piano with me, like this giant thing. And yeah, I learned the guitar pretty late actually. So yeah, at 14, 15 maybe.
Self-taught?
This is pretty funny. So I took some lessons. When I finally got my first electric guitar, took lessons at a local Yamaha music school when they were still a thing. And that guy, that I still remember him, Yam, my first and only guitar teacher, was a metalhead. He had long curly hair, always dressed in black, and listened to bands like Anal Mastication. So I was 15, had to, no, it's true story. The cassette, for one of the first cassette tapes. Don't listen to that. Listen to this, Anal Mastication, the latest death metal band, and a bunch of other stuff. So I didn't get into metal, but learned some really advanced techniques at 15 years old, like sweep picking and lots of nerdy stuff. But yeah, for the most part, high school was fun because banded with a group of nerds and outcasts who like play music, and it was a powerful thing. You're 15, school gets canceled. We had one classmate who had drums in his house, or actually, he had all the equipment in his house. He was one of those. So we'd go there after school and we'd kick out the jams. It was very empowering. Really sparks a lot of things in your brain. You'll be excited. Oh, I can go there like next week and we can jam out. So that's how it started. Then when everybody's mom and uncle and Tom, John, Sally was listening to Korn, new metal like just exploded across the globe. And it just so happened that our band played something like that. And we were part of that boom. This is late 90s. And we met a bunch of these people. We'd grab every gig we could. And we were 15, 16. So we'd sneak out, got into big trouble with our parents because one of the first gigs we had to play, you have this thing called production nights where the production, it's a scam. So the producer like gives you a bunch of tickets to sell. So so to get a slot in the production, you have to sell like 10 or 15 tickets. And of course, nobody knows all these bands in crappy bar in Santa Mesa, in a very shady area of Santa Mesa. So we'd end up, just to play that first show, we'd save our allowance and buy all the 10 tickets. But of course, you learn the hard way na, okay, the scene is a lot of politics. So there's a bunch of people who want to play before you, and we ended up playing at like 4 a.m. So we get home at 6 a.m., right in time for first period. This was senior year high school, I think. I think a lot of kids share the same experience if they are in bands. It was character building. Now we joined a lot of Battle of the Bands and the usual. I don't know. I think it's still a thing. Like now it's backed by corporations. You have Red Horse Music Laban. You have Wonderland. Yep. So you have that Wonderland Battle of the Bands to determine who's the indie band who's gonna play at the Wonderland Festival next year, so on and so forth. So yeah, we ended up. So we're in college now. No, we're still in high school, and we never won a single Battle of the Bands. me and Miggy and the rest of the Chico Sai gang. We never won. The best we ever did was second place. We were the best band in our batch, actually. Or so they said. But or so they
I have a
believed.
random question. Did you play varsity ball for high school?
Uh I did, yeah, I think so.
How do you, how do you balance that kind of schedule with
I got demoted to
ball?
Team B immediately because
Got it. Okay, got it.
they decided it for me. I didn't grow into the 6-footer that Larry Fonasher was. He was my teammate and he was quite the much better player. In fact, he plays for the national team.
So it was music. It ended up becoming music the path as well.
Yeah. You're not making it 6 feet. You're staying in music, young man. That's what my dad said.
So when it came to for example, starting your band Chikosai,
Mhm.
so that was the band. That was the one sneaking out and going to
Yeah.
the
That's the
4
one.
a.m. And how was that process? Just like meeting and connecting with each other and deciding like we're gonna start a band and we're gonna name it this.
The best way to imagine it would be to mix it with, like, I don't know, Riverdale, One Tree Hill. Like, imagine a
One
TV
Tree
drama.
Hill.
Now imagine a TV drama, a coming of age TV drama. It's basically the same thing, except you guys are trying to make it or trying to form a band. Like, I get kicked out of the same band, well, with same band members, but eventually they get me because I'm the only guy who can play a certain song. Because your skill level is really just only up to there at that point. So on and so forth. So there's a lot of drama. But kiddie, you know what I'm saying? High school, whatever's in your mind or whatever you imagine, what could possibly go wrong in a high school setting, it probably did. Okay, so I wasn't finished with the Battle of the Band story. So we won second place, and we won a substantial amount of money, a grand total of 3,500 pesos in 1999. That's a lot. No, it wasn't. It wasn't a lot. Because so we were excited to record a demo, but the money wasn't enough to do the demo in the premier demo place. So we had to ask some other guy to do it. And we made a 3-song demo, sent it to NU when NU was still a thing. And lo and behold, I get a call asking if we were interested in signing with a label. So apparently, at that same Battle of the Bands, we didn't win. The daughter of a record exec saw us and really liked us, and then heard the demo on Sunday, asked her dad to listen to it. And yeah, but the biggest kicker was, so at that point, we were good friends with the boys from Slapshot, and super funny. So Jamir helped us with the demo, and he heard about the label who wanted to get us. So he pops in the office, times it really well. The label manager is like listening to our demo, knocks at the door. Sir, yun ba yung bagong Slipknot? I'm like, or no. Ito yung Chico Science, yung bagong Discovery. Like a really old boomer boss. Really proud. And Jameer did the trick and we got signed the following week. But yeah, that's the story of how we got into the business. And then, yeah, it was an organic thing. You meet people along the way. We had to get our parents to write waivers for us to be able to sign contracts. Yeah, we were 15 or 16. We learned that pretty early on, balance. The whole work thing is important because we'd be flying to Cebu. We'd go back because we had long tests because it was our freshman year in college and you can't mess that up. And then we'd schedule the recording for our albums on the summers. So that's how we did it back then, which explains like all the release dates. So we'd release in October and every 2 years. That's how we do it. And then it changes and changes. You meet people, you learn how to record. Yeah. Sorry. I've been rambling. I've been talking quite some time. Please don't.
No, it's fine. It helps give us like an insider perspective. You're already everywhere. So we don't really know like the origin story of how this started with you sneaking off into bands to play in bars at like 4 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting hearing like the origin story of how that happened and all those character building experiences. So talk away, sir. Talk away.
Whoa.
Did you know you were gonna make it? Did you have that feeling like, yo, we're gonna penetrate the market? And
I didn't think that, but I thought we were doing something special or something different. At the very least, that's how I felt that we should keep on doing it. One of the most, I guess, validating moments was there was this one show we played. I know there was this event place in on top of Galleria. This was I'm sure of the years 2001, I think, but it was where Fully Booked used to be, and it got turned to an event place. And then we played a show. We played a bunch of our songs that we haven't recorded. We were done with our first album at this point. So, but at the first album, people signed us because of the power of the whole new metal phenomenon, and they thought we were kids who they could easily fool into signing a contract and sign away our souls, which we actually did because they still own those songs. But yeah, so if you put it into perspective, na we were in college, we were like 19 somethings, 20s, entering our 20s. So we kind of were forming the idea of what we wanted to be. So we wrote a bunch of songs that reflected that. Albums are really that. They kind of frame where you are or who you are at that particular time. So yeah, we played two songs or a bunch of songs from the newer batch, and that's one of the first times I actually talked to eventual bandmates, Raymond Marcigan, Diego, Jason Caballa, and they were talking about one particular song, and it was never recorded yet, but they recognized it immediately. It was Paris. So to date, I think that's still our with Chico said that's still the biggest hit we have. It was yeah, it holds the record for the longest number one song on radio. So, or second? No, no. I think number one, yeah. But yeah, so the following day, Raymond calls me and he wants dibs on producing that record. That's, I guess, moment number two. That's how that started.
how'd that evolve after there? Obviously, because
Oh, easy.
it
Moment
wasn't that
number.
it didn't stop there, right?
Yeah,
That journey.
no.
So,
I guess how I was talking about, you know how you imagine telenovelas and high school dramas. It's the same thing. So the next logical step was for me to okay. So we met in basketball, right, Brent?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, me and Diego Castillo's main thing was basketball. It wasn't music. We'd play Sundays in La Vista, and I don't know. We just share record. We'd listen to music after, before, or trade CDs and whatnot. 2 years later, we're living in the same apartment.
Wow.
But yeah, that's moment number three, I guess, because fresh grad. No, I was 1 year removed from graduation and decided, you know what, I'll take on a job. And my first ever job was marketing and launching C2 Cool and Clean green tea. And no, so okay, so I was part of the consumer and marketing service group of Universal Rubina. So and it was some new thing. Super funny. So my boss apparently is like some rock fan. he he specifically picked my CV because it said guitar player of the year. and you rock award 2002, 2001. I had to put it in. I mean,
Dope.
I was just shotgunning it. Apparently si Boss Mark. So he was a fan. Maybe not a fan, but he knew I was a rocker and that got me a job. They were doing segmentation for marketing consumer wise. So below the line, we're not talking TV ads here. We're talking promo guys in the grocery you go to and launching it in Boracay and stuff like that. Like person to person. So I was in charge of events of the teen segment. So that led me to I handled Nova, I handled Chippy, I handled C2. They're trying to rebrand Great Taste into a younger brand with a Tetra Pak. And that led me to looking for because gas prices that was when gas prices went crazy high. it reached 50 pesos per liter. You guys remember that time? There was a really crazy time.
I remember that time. It was like 52 pesos or something.
Yeah, it was insane. 2005 maybe, 2004, 2005. Basta, so gas was killing me going to work. I was like, syempre, close to minimum wage parang ano yun eh. First sweldo ko yun ever eh. So I decided, you know what? I look for a place near the office. And lo and behold, Diego Castillo found one and calls me up and makes me jealous. Invites me na, yo, I found this place again. Tapos, punta ka na rito. Tapos, daan ako doon. Daan lang ako doon na wala pa. Wala pang, no plans of living there. But, wow. I get that room. I get that big room. Next day, I pack and just go there and just live there. Yeah. So, that's moment number 3.
Yeah, it was interesting. So you were like was it 2 different bands at the same time?
Yeah.
Still is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a bit unheard of, and it was very unique and interesting that you were coveted by 2 of the most famous bands that we know of.
But at that point, you have to remember, Chicos I had Paris, Sandwich, they had their own hits. We even starred in one of the crossover 2 Trick Pony video when we did that house party video. But nothing crossover huge. You know what I'm saying?
I think when I met you, when you said like 2004, 5, 6, like that's when I started. That's when I like started.
I haven't. Did I meet
tagging
you
around.
already? I didn't meet you yet.
Maybe 06 to 07, around that time.
How old were you then, V?
I was in college, so I must have been like 19. I was in Pen Shop, dude. I was like Club Pen.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm modeling, and it's my first few stints. It was like a Pen Shop show, and they were playing, and you played one of the rock shows.
And we were Pen Shop. We were outfitted by Pen Shop at the time.
You were ambassadors.
They were
ambassadors.
Rock and roll jeans, if you remember.
Yeah. But it was that whole scene where it's like nothing was online. If you needed to meet someone, you had to be there at the event.
Which was great.
Which was great. And you really, it's like when I tagged around following Brent and John to like clubs, it was like you had to be there to feel the energy of it. And during that time, it's like when you have that access pass, it says backstage, and then we're watching Chico Sai. So that's how I met Chico Sai. But I met Mong really formally through Rosario because she styled him for a shoot.
Oh, yeah. That's really how.
Anyway, so we digress with the interview, and I'll take it back in a second. It's interesting for you that part of where the road took you was to play for 2 different types of bands. And, being that rare story as well. And in the Philippine music scene, since you've been a performer since you were 15 years old, how would you describe its evolution?
As a performer, the scene, like what would you want to know? Oh, what are you...
How about we can start with like music in terms of like the talent that comes out. And then if you want to get into maybe events later on or, whatever thoughts you have about it.
Local music, obviously it's very different now. You have to remember, so music, for it to reach you, it has to be on some form of medium. So for the longest time, they had vinyl. And then, the short-lived 8-track cassette, and then the cassette tape, and then the CD. The CD, I think, is the longest-running form of distribution for music. I think we're really lucky na us, as for our careers, na we made it there. Although we were at the tail end. I mean, if we're talking about the Razorheads, River Maya, like the decade before us, they really reaped the, I guess, financial benefits of that whole setup. Because we were Napster era already. So that was very beneficial for us 2 ways. Napster, meaning people at that point could sample your music for free. They could steal your music online. But it wasn't so easy. Now it took them like half a day just to download that one song. But on the flip side, after sampling that, then they can just get your CD because CDs, there are actual places that sell CDs. I mean, that's not a thing anymore. There was Tower Records, there's Odyssey, so on and so forth. There's an actual retail side of it. Same way that, like now, fast fashion or hype fashion right now, talk about retail spaces, you have for sneakers and clothes, it's a real thing because you can go to an actual place, and buy your stuff there. And you like in the back of your head, you know where to get it. So back in the day, CDs was it, and you get that album. But now the framework for it is very different. Like for example, what's the biggest act right now? The most streamed piece of music the past 3 months is Blackpink. That last single they released, and they've never released an album. They have 14 songs out on Spotify. If you, I may be mistaken on the number of singles, but that's it. People know them as characters. People know them by the tagline Blackpink in your area. But you can't talk about them like you would Pink Floyd on a t-shirt, and you know the logo and you know exactly the set of songs that's related to that picture. You know what I'm
With that,
saying? Yeah. Same way with Dre, Chronic, so on and so forth. Doggy Style, Snoop, the list goes on. So music is very different now. We have our share of success because we were smack in the middle of two about to explode things. One for the better, one for the worse. CDs are gonna be, they're not a thing anymore. And Napster, that's the prototype of what we have now. Except you kind of pay for it, but you're still ripping the artists off. I mean, you're not paying them enough. That's what I'm saying. Back in 2005 or 2000, maybe even 20 years ago, if you told me that there was a control variable and the experimental variable, and this is where we are, this is exactly where we'll be. I didn't see, though, that kids not recognizing the format of the album. And then, you know how in debates or articles right now, or people dismiss a lot of things by saying it's just semantics. It's really funny. Semantics can actually really affect entire industries. So, for example, if I tell you, yo, Lil whatever, Lil Knob, Lil Beep Beep, Lil Camera, whatever, the latest SoundCloud sensation has a new mixtape out, then you're excited for the 3 or 4 or 5 songs that he has. But back in the day, when you say mixtape, what it really meant was you're giving it away for free because you don't want to pay for the samples that needs to be cleared. So then semantics now make more, it has more weight to it right now. Or they took away the weight of it. So it's really funny.
When you came up in music, it was at the cusp of also like a technological change, right?
Yes.
Of, for example, CDs being phased out and everything moving to online music. I remember when it was Napster and Audio
Yeah.
Galaxy.
Yeah. And
Down-
LimeWire.
and
Give your-
LimeWire. Do you
Give your
remember
computer
that?
aids. Yeah.
Right? And then you go
Oh
to
my God.
do you guys remember when everyone would go to SNR and then buy those blank CDs? And then that was like, that was the thing. And then we would make your own playlist.
Then it turned into CDR King.
Yes, right? So it's like
which
the birth,
eventually did not sell CDRs anymore.
right? Because we don't need CDs anymore because the computers won't accept it. There's no CDs here, guys.
God, never.
Right?
Cars don't even have it.
Cars don't have it anymore, right? Because we don't listen to music in our cars. We're on our phones. So it's this whole, when you really zoom out, you see like all these technological changes that affected industries. And it's really interesting that you guys as artists came up during a time where there was like a change in technology and in power. So a lot of it was moving to like online and digital. But how do you feel that whole shift in technology affects the creative process?
Okay, so music-wise, I don't think by that much. The older musicians will still think in terms of albums. The younger kids will think in terms of singles. Like they wouldn't find the need for one song of theirs to be completely related to the next song they make. You know what I'm saying? For some people, it's a religious experience to listen from an album start to finish. For some kids, no, it's all about
the banger, the current banger,
or playlist. This is my playlist. This is my playlist. Yeah, I don't think that's on your mind when you're being creative. But being creative, selling these things, or finding the game that's encompassing the whole thing, apart from being an actual artist, that changes. Because for every era, there's been many different things. For example, the Beatles, their manager bought all their albums so they could put it on the papers the next day that Beatles album is sold out. And of course, everybody wants, it's creating demand, the usual thing. whether it be artificial or real. Then came the Stones, and they were like filling up arenas left and right. And they, to this day, say that the Beatles were not part of that. I don't think they played arenas. Maybe they played one or two, but they didn't make it to the way you think of a concert right now. Like, I don't know, a sold out Coldplay show or a sold out Kanye show, sold out Madison Square Garden. And back in the day, they didn't even have PAs loud enough to make the artist heard. Okay, so that being said, the creative space for that is very new, and a lot of people, it's exciting in the sense na people are trying to find ways to, I guess, lack of a better term, manipulate the system. Because at the end of the day, I don't find that it makes the art less. It's actually fun to think about those things creatively. Me talking about the story or the anecdote of the Beatles manager buying the records is cool. So if I find a way to game this system right now, 40, 50 years from now, somebody might, talk about that story. That's what I'm saying.
In a podcast. Yeah. Well,
I'm talking about it right now.
And it's interesting, like every single situation, there's always ways to think outside the box to get things done, right? What I'm hearing now is that although the process for you in terms of artists making art is very similar, just in terms of like the quantity, one's a single, one's an album. Yeah. It's now about being very creative and how to market and sell it, right?
No, I'm not saying as
You're
an
not
artist,
that?
No, I'm not saying that you should do both. I'm not a manager. Oh, some artists do that. So, there's a lot more now who are, like a complete version of that. What I'm saying is those two things are going on right now.
Oh, like
not necessarily. Yeah, not
can
necessarily.
You expound?
No, not necessarily. So if I'm an artist, I don't necessarily need to game the system, but I can find a guy who can. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that brings the whole, you were talking about, you need to be there, find the energy. That's still true. That's what I'm saying. The energy is still within the connection between the people. That's what I'm saying. That doesn't change. You have to find the energy within yourself if you want to market yourself, or you find a person that you really get along with or knows what you want, and so on and so forth.
It clarified a lot of things in the sense that, you don't have to also do everything yourself. What I picked up is it's important to have a team too, to kind of like help you game the system. Just kidding. Like help you build the brand and help you market and help you sell. So if anyone out there is listening, our email address is just kidding. So now,
and that's very different. That's very different too now, because so a lot of record companies are closing shop. Some are still alive, but yeah. So back in the day, we're talking about Tower Records or I don't know, Odyssey. You have displays. I don't know, TLC on rack 1, Janet Jackson on rack 2, Smoky Mountain on rack 4. Each of those racks have one person from each record label. So per record label, they're peddling that. Odyssey does not hire the salespeople there. I guess this isn't a secret anymore. I mean, it's not, because there are no record stores anymore.
It's not around, yeah.
It's not around, yeah.
But
that's how they did it before. Yeah.
Did you ever do that? Did you ever go to a Tower Records or Odyssey, get your album, and then bring it to number 1 and like put it everywhere? or was it already a number 1, so you didn't need to touch it?
No, I just checked if it was there.
Okay.
Just check.
Is that the first release? Yeah, I mean, like it's.
We'll do stupid teenager stuff, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
I'm just saying, if I was in a band, I would have probably done that.
Yeah.
Back when it wasn't like, it was.
Sorry, have I been boring?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Back then, that was the culture. The culture of selling music also, or marketing music, was a lot of events, a lot of feeling the energy in person. And what you said, like the record stores, like walking in and seeing all the posters and seeing the music videos play. Yeah. And it was a whole experience, right? So with a shift in like how the scenes are in music, say, for example, you've seen the shift of music, and I'm not just in the rock scene, like you've witnessed a lot, even in other types of music genres. And of course, like, everyone. You're one of the people that I know knows everyone in a lot of scenes, right?
Really?
Yes. when it comes to, for example, the new generation coming up and seeing new talents on the scene, who do you vouch for, or who do you think like has a lot of potential to grow, or
All of them. It's not even a political answer.
really?
Yeah, it's an equal opportunity system right now. That's what I'm saying. Like before, you had to be on a record label. Why? Because you can't pay for recording. 20 years ago, it cost you half a million to record and market an album. Then add 300 grand just to make a video because you had to do it on film. And you had to record the tape. But it's all a bunch of technical stuff. Now, people can do it in their bedrooms.
Their iPhone
The
or whatever.
iPhone, yeah, yeah. At this point, maarte pa nga like I have a home studio, but my work can be easily be trumped by some 17, 16-year-old on their iPhone. Alam mo yun, it's equal footing, equal opportunity at this point. And it's golden age in terms of creativity. But what I generally miss though is tradition. Okay, so passing on, I don't know if you get it. So that's what's different now. You know how I talked about Raymond calls me the following day and he calls me and he wants to produce our next record. It's very important at that point for me. It was very important and very validating. And it made me want to learn more. Listen back to the Eraser records I did not listen to because I did not listen to all of them back in the day. You know what I'm saying? So it makes everything so much clearer and it creates a story for the culture of the country. So I tried to do a little bit of that myself. So I did produce a bunch of stuff. I did Taken by Cars. The youngest one would be maybe sila Senya. So she's only 16. I guess the Perea Boys. It's all about that particular one was easy because we both sought each other out. I don't think that there's a lot of that now. That's what I'm missing. It's not mentorship. It's you know how you were saying a while ago, you have to be there
Yeah.
for the energy. So what not being there, the exchange of that is the scene is not as clear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not as clear as who's in the scene or it's not even about who I want to vouch for or who I vouch for. It's more of, oh, it's not so clear to me who's making music right now, or it's a lot of option paralysis, I guess. Equal opportunity, meaning everyone has stuff out, but I'm not hearing any of it.
Sometimes it has to be in person. You just feel it, you know?
Yeah, and to add, there's a generational thing. So it's kind of blurred. It could be a good thing. I don't know yet. But that whole generational thing, I feel is still important. It may sound negative to date someone, to date art, but I think it's important. I think it's not inherently a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to say that my music was in,
This period.
yeah, in the 2000s. We're that from a marketing standpoint, maybe it could be bad na it will prevent me from being more current.
You know, I don't look at it like that. We're in like if you create it at that time, you're stuck
Mhm.
there. Like I've always believed that artists are artists no matter what. So they're still creating up to this day.
Yeah, that's the artist, but the
Yeah.
art that like if you put out an emo album, that's
Mm.
mid 2000s, you date it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. People are quick to making it a negative thing, but it's very important to place generations where they are and see where and not where yeah, I guess where you're at, but it's important in the sense that you need to know that to see where it's going. Like for example, you could be blind, like you could be looking at all the mumble rappers now, but if you trace it back and go a little deeper, you're discovering, oh my god, all of these white kids are these guys would have been the same emo kids in the mid 2000s, except they're rapping now. You know, it grounds a lot of these things. And I guess it's important for someone who makes music. Maybe not so much for someone who just listens to the music. It makes you understand things more, put it into context. And if you're gonna create, it makes it less of a haze to know where to start. Like if I'm a folk singer from the 80s and I just jump right into middle of the pandemic and what song will I make? It pays to read the cultures generationally. I think that's my point.
Would this be because it helps just understand the context of how the music's made?
No, not how it's made, but because okay, the main point of music is expressing yourself and making sure people understand you.
Mm.
That's it. That's music and making people feel. How do you make people feel? You communicate and they understand. Okay, if you go blindly into it, yes, makakachamba ka, shotgun method or, banking on emotion. But I still believe in a little bit of method. And that's one of the ways you can get there and make sure you're understood. Like a 15-year-old kid might not understand power ballad. It might, like an 80s style power ballad, or if you sample it in a certain way and place it in the context of some other thing, then he might get it.
Mm.
So yeah, understanding and communication is still key. And that's still the point. That's still the point of music.
Got it.
We also want to find your perspective on some other things
Yeah.
like fashion. Obviously, for me, how I've known you, even before I really knew you, I could just sense that you were like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like fashionable.
A well-dressed
You're
young
also one
man.
of the well dressed. This guy dresses good. Like honestly, that was my first impression, right? So
Nice.
you you're one of the OG sneakerheads. Like that's also one thing that is always commonly tagged with yourself being
Mhm.
Mong. How did you get into the whole streetwear or fashion in general?
Okay, shoes. The same way there's a meme na talk about skateboarding. Skateboarding will give fashion its next trend. It was really that. Kind of tied to the music. So all the bands I listened to dressed cool. Like Pearl Jam dressed cool. Dennis Rodman dresses like Pearl Jam. Rage Against the Machine is still a style peg to this day. Well, maybe that not the communist hat. I don't know. They'll wear football jerseys, corduroy pants, simple or airwalks, and skate. And then I was into skateboarding too growing up. So I think a lot of that is informed by that. And I'm a nerd. I like getting into things a little under the surface. I'd read books on how these people live their lives, I guess. Like guitar players. I would like look at pictures of their homes, names of their kids, and try to piece it together. And I'll have a bizarre version of that myself. I guess that's how I kind of keep it original for myself, because I don't think anybody would share the same set of interests I would in if I follow that trail of thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your
Basketball.
references, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So references. So it's all about referencing a lot. All these designers right now, like the famous ones, talk about referencing or straight up stealing.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't think it's a bad thing because I was talking about in music. You date something, it's not a bad thing, and if you steal it and you get away with it, that's fucking cool.
Well, that's what streetwear is pretty much
Yeah,
made off, right? Like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
not to
Stealing and
mention stuff, but they just steal, right? They
yeah,
rip.
reappropriation. Especially now, I think there's a lot of people our age who understand fashion now because you totally get where they're coming from. Like they'll steal some obscure logo or font from an airport in the 50s or the 60s, and you're totally into that.
And you know it
Uh, and you
because you've
know it.
seen it. You grew,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
grew, you grew up
exactly.
seeing it, right? But like these new kids, they're repping a brand that they have no idea what the history is, right?
Yeah,
So it's weird. It's weird seeing in that perspective.
but at the same time, I don't blame them. There are some whack things. It doesn't mean that if you reference something, it's cool, because they'll reference some whack things. I don't mind so much. Like, so if a kid like latches on to a reference that you understand, if something's cool, it's cool forever. If something was whack before, it's still whack now. So if you reference a whack thing, it's still whack now. That's all I'm saying.
And here's
What?
a random question. So
What is whack to you?
I don't know. Something not honest. It's pretentious. It can be conformist. It's obvious irony. Not entirely smart. You can see right through it. It has to have levels. Things have to have substance. Things have to have angles. Things have to have dimension. Then after all of that, then you put it into context. And context is always where we are now. So that's how I deem things to be cool or not cool.
it's a hard question to answer because, like, I mean,
Yeah, I had to answer it quite existentially. So I guess clothes, I don't really think about it. There are some things that talk to me in communication.
but
Sneakers, I've
how
all.
do you
Oh,
always know what's in before everyone in general?
do
I'm just
I?
wondering. Yeah, I think so. I'd say so. like before it gets to the masses, like I feel like you already have a pulse on what is going to get big before it gets big, or what's real before all
It's
the
a thing.
dads start wearing it. Yeah, before it's a thing.
I'll jump on something that I like.
Which is why I'm saying it's innate. Like you feel it before, like you don't have to like overly analyze it. You just sort of know.
It's simple in a way na you don't want to wear what everyone's wearing. That's one. That's
Yes.
one. That's the most basic. And then here's a crucial part. You have to also figure out what is okay with you that everyone is also wearing. It's easy to be just different, but it's determining something classic, I guess. Something that I can pick out things and I don't mind to see someone else wearing, I guess.
Uniqlo for
Mhm.
me and you. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that, or yeah.
So it's kind of like basically like understanding yourself. Like, what do
Yes,
right? Like,
exactly.
what am I okay? You're wanting to express yourself, your need for individuality, also wanting to set yourself apart. But at the
Mhm.
same time, there are things you also don't mind rocking that you see other people rocking. So, do you have like certain brands exactly that you consider timeless in your opinion or classic? Since you talked about something classic.
In recent years, I think Uniqlo's really gonna be a classic. If you're talking about
Polo.
Polo from high school, not Tommy, more Polo. Like everything that's getting huge now, it's giving me high school flashbacks. Prada, Rosso, that sport line. I bought Gucci loafers in high school, and I still am able to rock them now without being ironic. So I guess that's a classic. But it's super funny. People who are trying to make it, I guess, in or a thing again are dudes probably my age. It's still funny. It's a funny peacock thing.
Dickies
Classic.
workwear in general, you know,
All
all
right.
workwear.
Dickies, more Dickies for me than Carhartt.
Uh,
That's I just get it more. But a brand that like really I understand almost completely would be Brain Dead, owned by an Asian, relatively same age, relatively same influences. So he recently came up with a collection for the Locust. It's a band from 2006 and their noise score, and I totally get that. And if you follow him, he was going into this whole he had a bunch of IG stories, and it was super funny for me because he was mentioning drummers na I know are super not underground, maybe esoteric, sobrang specific to certain things. Like if you didn't listen to melodic noise core in October of 2005, you wouldn't know this particular guy. You know, it's super specific. So I get him. I guess because we just talked about Polo, and for me, Noah's like a cross section of Polo and Supreme.
yeah,
It's
I could see that. Yeah.
yeah, it's somewhere there. I talk about this a lot with Mark Ong Sabotage. We always talk about Supreme will never be whack. People will always have sweeping statements. They did a brick, they did Oreos, they're whack, but they will never be whack. They're one of those. They're one of those. I think Brain Dead will be there. Probably not as huge. Come on, you did LV. That's crazy. You know,
Mm.
that's insane. And it's actually the whole reason why all of these high fashion houses are hiring street guys left and right.
So it's interesting, like in terms of the relationship of music and fashion also being intertwined.
I feel they're connected in the same way na you have to know all these ins and outs. Like you have to know that the guy from Soundgarden played drums on the demos of Pearl Jam. You have to find out that
Did not know.
so you have to know that Chris Cornell did Spoon Man as a demo on Singles the movie. And he actually has an entire record of all those songs as himself playing that other guy in the movie. Like all these trivia things may seem trivial to people, but no, it tells a story. It tells because they're real people.
So basically, what you're saying, be a
Music and
student of the
fashion are the
game.
same that way. Huh?
Be a student of the game,
Yeah.
right?
Recognize their people.
Recognize the history and
Mm-hmm.
recognize like
Yes.
the stories behind it because it contributes to culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it is, to be honest, Mong, one of the reasons why we started the podcast, because we saw a lot of like things not being documented or stories not being told, but we've witnessed it in person and we know, so it's also part of our intention to make sure that these things are told and put out there. So ever since the lockdown, there has been a greater need for artists and musicians out there to also uplift everyone, like their spirits. How has that affected you and your bands?
Right before literally the night before the lockdown, the Chico Sai gang was here, like in the studio. We were deciding on like doing online shows pre-lockdown completely. We wanted to do stuff with songs that were licensed to us, stuff we actually own, like stuff we got away with, because the business is designed for artists not to own their songs. That's really heavy on me because I'm a victim of that. So we were doing a bunch of them. We were able to release that on the first weekend of lockdown, which was cool. We just attached a message of stay safe and stay home because that's what you were supposed to be doing, and that's what you're still supposed to be doing now. And then Sandwich were one of the first bands to do the quote unquote quarantine type of videos. To the layperson, yes, it's possible to have Zoom calls, but virtually impossible to jam online. Because to play music together with, I'll get technical here. Realistically speaking, the farthest I can be from another musician and still maintain a proper rapport with the musician would be 30 feet. And that produces 300 milliseconds of delay. So what I'm hearing is late by 300 milliseconds. All these online things probably have a latency of 500 milliseconds. So like the science and the physics of it just doesn't make it possible. Although there are some advancements in recent months, like some scientists, I guess, who have been working on it, are getting attention now. So they're rolling out their product. But yeah, we're talking about March, April, May here, where none of that was still possible. And we were recording every Sunday, and we treat it as quote unquote homework because we missed her. That's one of the first things you miss as a musician, playing together. So it's the closest thing we had, and we do it every Sunday. And we're not big, both bands, we're not big on political statements. But don't get us wrong, we're not neutral. We have our stance. But as musicians, we feel that the statement is not the most important thing, but more of uplifting people, like you said. And that was our way early on. And eventually, yeah, I guess it worked because a lot of people have been doing their own quarantine lockdowns. And Raymond in fact, has been, I don't know if he still does it now, but he'd record himself playing drums, put it on his IG, and ask people to add stuff on it. And he'd play like popular songs, popular Eraserhead songs. And then he'll get tagged, and kids would, hey, this is me playing guitar over with Raymond. So yeah, you're sharing with everybody. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, just to wrap up our podcast, what would you tell like the young aspiring musician today?
Oh, easy. Do your homework. Yeah, homework is important. Don't be in a rush to post. Homework is more important than posting.
Well, Mong says this too because obviously he's a father and he's very close with his kids. So
yeah. So thank you. This is fun. We're looking forward to seeing you in person when this is all over and going over these laugh trips. This was fun, Mong.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you.
It's the same energy that you've always brought to a lot of events. And, when we met you, you're that happy guy. Always laughing when we see you in the club or event. And it's good that...
I'm still laughing.
You're still laughing. So thanks a bunch and be safe in lockdown with you and your family. Yeah. Brent?
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I just want to say thanks again, bro, for coming through.
Thanks, Mong. All right, take care.
No, thank you. Thank you.
If, like us, you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with a friend. While you're at it, follow us on Instagram at NextTheory, at Victoria_Herrera, and at Brent Javier.